Day.
Our celebrity singers.
Oh, yay!
We come together to behold the power of love, the power of light. We come together to behold. We are divine. Lift up our hands, oh, lift up our hearts. Lift up your vision, lift it to the stars. Dance in the glory, whirl in the grace. See God in every face. See God in every face. We come together to behold the power of love, the power of light. We come together to behold. We are divine. Lift up our hands, oh, lift up our hearts. Lift up our vision, lift it to the stars. Dance in the glory, while in the grace. See God in every face. See God in every face. Lift up our hands, oh, lift up our hearts. Lift up our vision, lift it to the stars. Dance in the glory, while in the grace. See God in every face. See God in every face. See God in every face.
Yes, indeed. See God in every face. They are our celebration as well as celebrity singers. I am Lainey Morger, and I'd like to welcome you again to Unity. Anybody here for the first time today? Yay! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Our ushers will give you a little information packet, and if you'd like to fill it out, we invite you to do so. Anybody here for the second and third time? Even better. Welcome back. And for all of us old timers, keep on keeping on, because this is the place to be on a Sunday morning. Anyway, we are here on Easter Sunday. Thankful and grateful to Christine, who is sending out the pictures and making the sound happen. To our music director, Katie Deese. To Samantha Mifsud, who will be singing us into joy. Our prayer partner for today is Lisa Keating. You'll hear from her shortly. And our prayer lecture today will be from Dr. Herbert Harris. So I invite you to join us in our principle. There is only one presence and one power, active in the universe and in my life. God, the good omnipotence. Our three affirmations are: I am a beloved expression of God. I am in the holy purpose. I'm in the right place at the right time, right now. And I wish to thank our gardening team for the beautiful flowers and for all of your celebrations and remembrance of people in our past. So we have lilies and tulips. Thank you. Samantha? No. Lisa.
Good morning. It is a happy Easter Sunday, and the daily word for today, April 9th, 2023, is Easter. I am resurrected through the power of Christ. On this glorious Easter day, I am resurrected and brimming with new life. The stones of defeat and limitation have rolled away. I am free and unlimited. Throughout the Lenten journey, I heeded the call from my soul to recognize my own stones in my consciousness and awaken to the infinite potential within me. I can now rejoice in the shimmering light of awareness
with open and joyful heart. My faith is strong, and I am ablaze with the radiance of spirit. I welcome eternal, indwelling life into my mind and heart. Hope never dies. Jesus transcended death and demonstrated life is eternal. With a grateful heart, I rise up and claim new life. I am resurrected through the indwelling Christ. It's a new dawn, a new day, a new beginning. I have risen. And John chapter 11, verse 25, it says, I am the resurrection and the life.
Lisa. And so we are Samantha.
When life has cut too deep and left you hurting, the future you had hoped for is now burning, and the dreams you held so tight lost their meaning, and you don't know if you'll ever find the healing. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. The night can only last for so long. Whatever you're facing, if your heart is breaking, there's a promise for the ones who just hold on. Lift up your eyes and see. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. Every high and every low you're gonna go through. Do not be afraid, I am with you. In the moments you're so weak, you feel like stopping. Let the hope you have light the road you're walking. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. The night can only last for so long. Whatever you're facing, if your heart is breaking, there's a promise for the ones who just hold on. Lift up your eyes and see. The sun is rising, and even when you can't imagine how you're ever gonna find your way out, even when you're drowning in your doubt, just look beyond the clouds. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. Just look beyond the clouds. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. The sun is rising.
Wow. Thank you, Samantha. You were reading my mind with that song. Welcome. Wow, where did all these people come from? I sat in my meditation and the room is full. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you for being here on this special Easter Sunday. You know, this Easter is such a special Easter because so much is going on in the world that the fact that we can come together in peace and love and harmony and pause a moment to get a good connection to who we are and our great possibilities in life is a blessing. And so we accept this blessing today, knowing that we can share on one accord. We love to prepare for our lesson by meditation. And the meditation is a sunrise meditation. So, you know, when we talk about one mind, you know, pretty soon we won't even need the cell phones. You know, we just think it and there it is. You know. So today let's do our meditation to prepare for the message. Just sit straight up in your seats. Put your feet flat on the floor and put your hands palm down on your knees. Close your outer eyes and open your inner eyes. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. And in this moment of meditation, I would love for us to see ourselves standing on the beach, facing east, in those moments before the sun rises from behind the ocean. You know, there's a special feeling you get when you're standing on the beach in the early morning. There's a coolness. You just feel that breeze coming from the ocean, caressing your face. And hear the rhythm of the waves crashing on the shore. And as we feel the coolness and we hear the waves, we see in the horizon that glow. That glow that comes before the sun starts its predetermined trajectory across the sky. Let us just focus on that glow for a moment. And we see that glow spreading across the horizon, and we say, it is good. Together, it is good. And then the goodness of the light as it begins to caress the horizon, the sun starts to climb on its journey. And that first light that comes through, it dances across the water and touches you in that special place. Take a deep breath. Let it out. And just feel the light caressing your eyes as the sun begins to rise even higher. And the flame and the light becomes brighter and brighter as it rises, and it seems as though once it begins to rise in the sky, it moves quicker and quicker. You can't blink because because all of a sudden, it's there. The light of love. And we receive it. The light of good health. And we receive it. The light of joy. And we receive it. The light of abundance. And we receive it. And in this space of peace and relaxation, the risen sun gives a warmth that prepares us, that leaves us open and receptive to the lesson today. My mind is open and receptive. Let us say that together. My mind is open and receptive. Just let that sink in. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And together we say, and so it is. Give yourselves a hand. Ooh. You know, we are so fortunate to live on the beach. You know, those mornings, there have been a number of Easter mornings that I really made it my business to go down to the beach. And there's something special about it. How many of you have done that? Those sunrise services, there's something about them. You know, thank goodness it was warmer the last time. But those sunrise services do something to you. And what it does, it really prepares you for the spirit of the holiday, of the message, and of the season. So, let me welcome our audience online. You know, a lot of people watch online now. Yeah, I look at some of the comments. A lot of people watch online, and we appreciate it. And thank you for being there. Thank you for being a part of this. And when you're in Wilmington, be sure to come. And those of you in the room, thank you so much, because I can feel the vibrations of love that come up today. This Easter Sunday is special because our topic is your personal resurrection. There's a so much bigger message about Easter. I mean, we have the normal story, but there's a bigger message. And this time we want to really tie it down. We want to really crystallize that message and use it as marching orders. Not just to hear it, but to go out and do it. And so to prepare ourselves for that, let us sort of do our meditations and our affirmations and our tie-downs. You know, I'm still one of those that I like what we call call and response. And so when you go to church, my, don't you look great today? Wow, I love that suit. Wow, I love that. I'm going to get one of those. But we love call and response because it like ties down whatever the message is. And so if I say, how do you feel? You say, great, let's practice. How do you feel?
Great.
Wow. You know, sometimes you get a group and you go, how do you feel? Great. Are you sure? Let's do loved. How do you feel? Loved. Man. Woo, I can feel that. Yeah. You know, those call and response things just stimulate us and connect us. Affirmations do the same thing on a different level. Whatever you affirm about yourself especially is true. So, I am great. Let's say that together. I am great. How about healthy? I am healthy. Let's do beautiful through and through. Now that's what you got. You got to move around a little bit. They just can't. I am beautiful through and through. I don't believe you. So let's try it together. I am beautiful through and through. One more time. I am beautiful through and through. Give yourselves a hand. I'm ready. Woo! I love it. You know, this Easter season really highlights the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's really one of the more subtle messages of the Easter, of the resurrection. That we are spiritual beings, and this idea of the body that we have is incidental. That our vibration, our spiritual presence is greater than the body that we have. And I think that's one of the subtle messages of the resurrection. I love a quote by Robert Flatt. And you know, a lot of times when people give quotes, they'll give a name, but they don't really know who the person is. You're like, oh, John Smith said that. Well, what did John Smith do? Well, I don't really know. But I got the quote. But Robert Flatt was a person who had Parkinson's. And when it came upon him, he had to change his whole life. And he changed his whole life. He was a photographer, and he was like on a mission to capture images that had not been seen before. And his quote, he said this very powerfully. He said, "The resurrection gives my life meaning and direction and the opportunity to start over, no matter what my circumstances." Now that's powerful. When you have an illness like that, to have that type of attitude, that now that this idea of resurrection says you can start over no matter what my circumstances. And that's really the message. That no matter what's going on in our lives, we can start over, no matter what the circumstances. Last week, remember, we prayed together. We said, man, lift up Sandra. Remember? Well, it worked. Sandra, stand up and just wave your hand, because we prayed her up. And so this morning I said, you rise. And so this idea of resurrection is really an opportunity for all of us to start over. That no matter what's going on in your life, and no matter what your situation, you can come through it. And you can come through it victoriously. Easter is probably the most celebrated holiday. Christmas has become so commercial, you know, it's just incidental that there's a message associated with it. Christmas is like buy stuff, you know. I mean, that's really. But Easter's not quite like that. Easter is probably one of the most powerful events in Christianity. And it's the culmination of Holy Week. We always hear about Holy. Palm Sunday opens Holy Week. Easter Sunday closes the Holy Week. And so between these two times, incredible stuff happens. So the idea is, let us look at Easter as a spiritual experience, a spiritual lesson that we can take from and use it in our lives. I'll summarize the traditional Palm Sunday Easter interpretation. You know, we talked about it last Sunday. Jesus came into Jerusalem triumphantly on Palm Sunday, and he did that because he had just raised Lazarus from the dead, who'd been in the grave stinking for 4 days. Quite a feat. And he not only did it by himself, he did it with other people present. So when you read that section of Scripture, there's an intentionality there, that he was on his purpose. And this was all a part of the plan. So we have the raising of dead of Lazarus, creating quite an uproar. Everybody in the area paid attention. They didn't have cell phones or television, so I guess it was word of mouth, but the word got around. So that by Passover, Jesus comes into Jerusalem triumphantly. And I was sharing before, I've spent time in the Holy Land, and it's amazing. You can see the beautiful gate that Jesus passed through from the Garden of Gethsemane. And when you see that these are real places, it gives the Bible and this whole message a different dimension. Comes into Jerusalem victorious. He insults the priests. He upsets the Pharisees, and ends up by Friday being crucified. And a short time later, he arises from the dead. Interesting thing about this, you know, there's only one mention of the word Easter in the Bible. And I don't even know if it's in the original. You know, I tend to read the King James Version, the early, you know, all of the Bible is a translation by somebody of something, you know. very few of us read Greek or Aramaic, and, so we're getting a secondhand interpretation. But the only place that Easter ever comes up in the Bible, the only time is in the Acts, the 12th chapter, the 4th verse. And even then, the word is used, but it's really, Easter is referring to the Passover. So it's not really in the Bible. And the overall lesson of this process is that Jesus made certain choices, and based on those choices, certain things happen for a purpose. When we look at it like this, Jesus made these choices so that his message could get out. He chose to go raise Lazarus from the dead. He chose to. And when you read the scripture, it's very clear. He chose to go participate in the Passover. And each time along the way, he said, this is for the fulfillment of the scripture. So when we look at our lives evolve based on the choices we make. When you really look at the Bible, each of the people in the Bible is really us, an aspect of our own consciousness. And so we go through changes ourselves where we make choices, and some of them get us into trouble. One of the other aspects of the crucifixion and that whole Easter experience is that once Jesus came back from the dead, he continued on the earth for another 40 days. That's what the book of Acts is all about. And he continued to speak to his disciples and teach others. The interesting thing about that, though, is nobody recognized him. And so this is a symbolic understanding that when we make changes in our lives, the people who were closest to us don't recognize us. If the people recognize us, then we have not made a complete change. And so when we see that passage, that whole section of Acts, so for 40 days, he went around the area teaching his disciples to give them the level of consciousness and commitment that they could do the job. When we look down, Peter was eventually crucified, James, the Romans, they did a job. But because of this additional commitment of Jesus, this idea of helping raise their level of consciousness, throughout the Bible, you'll see the number 40. 40 days on the mountain of transfiguration where the devil tempted Jesus. The Hebrew people wandered in the desert 40 days. 40 is like a cycle for evolution, for change. Over a 40-day period, everything changes. So this idea of the power of resurrection is really saying that no matter what happens in your life, you can get through it. It even says something even further. Dr. Martin Luther King had an interesting quote on the resurrection. He said, "Our Lord has written the promise of resurrection, not in the books alone, but in every leaf at springtime." Our Lord has written the promise of resurrection, not in books alone, but in every leaf at springtime. And so what this is saying, the resurrection is something that's a continuous process. That we always go through situations where we need to change. I guarantee you, everybody in this room, everybody who hears this message, there are things that are going on in your life right now that you need to change. And the resurrection gives us the confidence to do it, that we can get through it. If we don't grow through it, we'll never go to it. So whatever it is that we want to do in life, we have to grow into it. Which means we have to lift our consciousness. I grow through it to go to it. Let's say that together. I grow through it to get to it. So that anything that happens to you is for your growth. Sometimes you question that. Like, man, are you sure? When you hit a rock or, when some of the things that can happen in our lives happen, it can really turn us around and say, like, you question God and say, are you sure? Is this really for my benefit? But when you can see the bigger picture, you can see that it is. Everything that happens is for our good. Josh McDowell said this, and I love it. He said, no matter how devastating our struggles, disappointments, and troubles, they are only temporary. And that's really a part of what Dr. King was saying. Every spring changes, no matter how bad the winter. This is, out west, you look at those pictures of snow in California, I mean, where your house is under snow. I can't even imagine that. I lived in Cleveland 3 years, and it was bad enough having to dig out the driveway. But to have to climb off the roof to get out of your house, can you imagine that? But even that will pass away. So this is a powerful message that when we realize that no matter what goes in our lives, we can transform. And so this is why this idea that this resurrection is so important, because we must be guided by our purpose. If we're not guided by our purpose, it can be a challenging situation. So let's look at some keys to our personal resurrection. First key, everything has a season. Second key, we are where we are as a result of our thoughts, our emotions, our habits, and our relationships. Third key, we must choose to change. Fourth key, we must have a vision of what we desire. Fifth key, to realize it's okay to doubt. And the sixth key is we must make all things new. Let me delve into that. I like to tell you what, one of my teachers years ago, he says, the key to speaking is to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And so, let's look at each one of these topics. Everything has a season. Everything has a purpose. So everything has a reason and a season. The reason is the purpose for living. And the season are the cycles in which things take place. And so our goal is really to figure out our purpose and then follow our purpose based on the life we live. The farmer has a purpose to plant corn, but no matter how deep his desire, you cannot plant corn today and then eat corn 2 weeks from now. Because there's a season for corn. It takes 60 to 90 days. And so when we understand our purpose, we must see it in the context of the seasons. Everything has a purpose. The birds have a purpose. Butterflies have a purpose. We were watching the bees when it was warmer a few weeks ago, when it was 80 degrees, and they were going from flower to flower. I mean, there was a ton of them. We just sort of stood back and let them do their thing. They didn't need any education about that. They were living their purpose. Man is the only being that can choose to ignore their purpose. If we look back to millions of years, the alligators have not built one apartment house. There's not a single lion that hunts for sport. And so this idea of a reason and a season is that once we are aware of our purpose, then we can become a part of that season. We can then really vibrate with the season so that we get the great results. We live our life in stages, and this is why I wanted to bring this out. This is a ladder, delicate ladder. But the idea is we live our life in stages, and each stage is a level of consciousness. In the scripture it said, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I acted as a child. But once I became a man, I put away childish things. And so as we move up, there's that first step, maybe that step of education, those first 20 years of our lives, where we learn values, and we learn truth, and we learn how to think. The only problem is who the teachers are. If we had great parents and great elders who loved us and uplifted us, it gives us a head start. But some of us were not that fortunate. Some of us had some we can't blame the parents. They did what they understood, but they were operating on a level of consciousness. So this first step may be that level of education where we get our value system. Another step may be that level of sensation where we learn about feelings and love and drugs and all those things that titillate the feelings. Another step may be where we learn about power. We want to be in charge. We want to rule stuff. Another step, maybe we start thinking about our legacy. What do we leave in the world? But the idea is that everything has a reason and a season. We must seek out our purpose and then understand how to make it happen. The second key, we are where we are because of our thoughts, our emotions, and our habits. The first law of success says a mind. A man shall have whatsoever he thinks in his heart. So the thoughts and the feelings really determine our experience. So we are where we are because of our thoughts, our feelings, our habits, our relationships. The third key now is that we must choose to change. And this is where it gets interesting. So when whatever situation we are in right now, we have to change our thinking. If we are at a step on this ladder where stuff is just not working for us, where we're not happy, then we have to change our thinking. And so this is a profound thing with resurrection because it says you can change negative thinking of lack and limitation to positive thinking of abundance and possibilities. That you can change negative emotions of fear and insecurity, jealousy, to positive emotions of faith and confidence and compassion. We can change our habits. And, you know, the habits are the hardest thing to change because someone once said that a habit is so easy to get into but hard to get out of. You know? Sometimes, you know, we look at the things we want to do, and if our habits don't support our goals, like many of us, all of us want to be healthy. But many of us are not willing to pay the price to be healthy, to watch what you eat, to get exercise. So this idea of change, we must change our thoughts, we must change our emotions, we must change our habits, and then we got to change our relationships. And that's the most critical because it is through relationships that you can tap into the mastermind. If you're surrounded by the wrong people, you won't be able to access powers that you have. If you're surrounded by people who criticize everything you do, I have to admit, my mother was a criticizer. You know. She was a piano teacher, Katie, and she wouldn't even teach me. She sent me to the competition. Said, go irritate her. Okay? I mean, her attitude, she said, thank God there are only 88 keys on the piano. Sooner or later, you'll find the right one. And that stymied my music for the years. I mean, I didn't get back to the piano for at least 30 years. Now, I can't blame her. I mean, she did the best she could, and at the time, it made sense to her. But relationships are so powerful. And so this idea of transformation, changing relationships from fear to love, from dishonesty to honesty, respect, compassion. Once we make these changes, we can change our lives. One of the interesting things about being confronted with need to change is many times our growth is a result of the need to change. When we have a challenge in our lives, sometimes we have to go through it to get to it. If there was no Goliath, there would be no David. I mean, we wouldn't have, there would be nothing in the Bible about David. Be Goliath, king of the land or something, okay? Think about this, though. If there was no resurrection, there'd probably be no Jesus. I mean, there were healers, but if you look back on the uniqueness of that, the two things Jesus did that was very unique in all the spiritual experiences is one, to raise somebody from the dead after 4 days, and two, to come back to life themselves. In other words, Jesus conquered the greatest obstacle of life, which is death. But also the message there was that it was not just a physical death, that we are spiritual beings, so even though the body died, the spirit continued. And that's why now, 2,000 years later, we're still talking about this resurrection experience. This fourth key. We must have a vision of what we desire to become. And I think that's where many of us get thrown off. You know, when you ask a young person, what do you want to be? When I work with young people, Sandra and I used to work with middle schoolers, and it was scary. I mean, when I was a kid, kids at least wanted to be something. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. Yes, kids, what do you want to be? I don't know. And that's a scary thing, because if you don't have something you want to be, then you have nothing to work toward. And so this idea of resurrection means that you have to resurrect to something. You just can't, I'm just going to resurrect and see how it goes. You have to have something that you want to be, something you want to do, something you want to have. This fifth key, though, is a heavy-duty one. And the fifth key says that we have to realize it's okay to doubt. You know, one of the interesting passages about the crucifixion was that at one point Jesus said, Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? And that says that when we have doubts in our lives, we can get past the doubt. You know, many times we'll start something and we're working at it, and that doubt creeps in and we quit. Somebody criticizes or says something negative about what we're doing, we quit. But Jesus' message is, it's okay to doubt, but don't be overcome by doubt. And then finally, the sixth key is we must make all things new. That the moment you go through a resurrection experience, you cannot look backwards. You must have new thoughts, new emotions, new habits, new relationships. Do you know if you build the most magnificent ocean liner, you know, these big ones, now I don't know how those things don't fall over. You ever see them? I mean, they're like 9 stories high. But you know, if you put down the anchor of the past, it won't go anywhere. And so in our lives, we have to, when we say we're going to be new again, we have to have new thoughts, new emotions, new habits, new relations, and we can't go back. You cannot drag the past into the future. We have to leave the past and look to hope. So the message of Easter is this, that you can always write a new ending. You can't change the beginning, but you can always write a new ending to your life. You can always create a new person, a new you. We used to work with the prisoners, and we used to tell prisoners when we were training them to come back out into the world, we said, look, when you go out, you better get a new playground. That means a new environment. So when you make the changes in your life, you may have to move. At least limit access, you know, or change your attitude toward the environment. But a new playground, you need to have new playthings. Means you have to have a new set of values. You know, many of us started out in business thinking we wanted to get rich. But then one day we realized rich wasn't what we wanted to help people. That the joy didn't come from the check. The joy came from seeing somebody else flying who could only walk before. And then you got to have new playmates. New people who honor you, who respect you, who uplift you, who believe in you. So let's just summarize those 6 keys to your personal resurrection. Everything has a reason and a season. We are where we are because of our thoughts, our emotions, our habits, and our relationships. We must choose to change. We must have a vision of what we desire to become. Realize that everything, it's okay to doubt, but not be overcome by doubt. And then to make all things new. So let us stand and close out today. Was this helpful? Yes. Do you feel like you can go out now and create a new you? Yes. All right. Well, let's see. I'll say it, and then you repeat after me. Everything has a reason and a season.
Everything has a reason and a season.
I live good thoughts.
I live good thoughts.
Good emotions.
Good
Good habits. Good relationships. I understand my purpose. I have faith in myself and in the process. I make all things new. Let's say that again. I make all things new, always knowing that the best is yet to come. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Wow. I enjoyed that. Yeah. You know, you all are a great audience. You know, as a speaker, sometimes you may have an audience. You know, you can blame the audience. You say, oh, man, those guys are just duds. Yeah. But when you get a great audience that responds, that people feel, where everybody's on beat, I tell you, you picked the right song. You sang it marvelously. You set everything up. Lisa, you read the right piece from the Daily Word. I'm like, wow, everything is cooking. So now it's time to take up our collection. Those online, please go to the Venmo and all those opportunities for giving. Those here, give all you can. I hope you like the message. If you really love the message, give a lot. Okay? All right. Take care. Let us do our affirmation for giving together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive, and so it is.
Stand in the light and be seen as we are. Didn't I tell you I hear what you say? Never look back as you're walking away. Carry the music, the memories, and keep them inside you. Laugh every day. Don't stop those tears from falling down. This is who I am inside. This is who I am. I'm not going to hide. 'Cause the greatest gifts we'll ever make is by far to stand in the light and be seen as we are. To stand in the light and be seen as we are. And kindness, hold on to your faith. You get what you give, and it's never too late to reach for the branch and climb up, leaving sadness behind you. Fight hard for love. We can never give enough. This is who I am inside. This is who I am. I'm not going to hide. 'Cause the greatest gifts we'll ever take is by far to stand in the light and be seen as we are. To stand in the light and be seen as we are. Riding the storms that come raging toward us, we dive. Holding our breath as we break through the surface with arms open wide. With arms open wide. This is who I am inside. This is who I am. I'm not going to hide. 'Cause the greatest gifts we'll ever make are, to stand in the light and be seen as we are. Oh, 'cause the greatest gifts will ever take us by far, to stand in the light and be seen as we are, to stand in the light and be seen as we are, to stand in the light and be seen as we are.
Wow. Samantha, you're cooking today. Does she look taller today? I mean, you're cooking. Thank you so much. That was so powerful. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Give her another hand. And I mean, Katie was cooking there now. Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Woo, that was, I was ready to sing with you. Yeah, I can do it now. Let us just be still a moment as we give thanks for this offering that has been given in love, that has been given in concern, that has been given in compassion, that has been given in support of this ministry so that we can continue to build and to grow. Thank you for each and every heart that was here today and was moved to share your blessings and your bounty. Thanks to each and every one of you online for doing what you have to do to support this ministry. We appreciate each and every one of you. Always knowing that this offering creates a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment. And together we say, and so it is.
Wow. What a wonderful service. What wonderful music. What wonderful you. Our service is coming to an end, and I have announcements to make. The first of which is that Lisa is our prayer partner. If you wish to join her in prayerfulness, she'll be over at the prayer box after the service. And if you wish to put an intention in there, we will pray over it for 30 days here, and then send it on to Silent Unity for another 30 days of remembrance. We're doing what people have requested. We're putting together a church directory. We've had them in the past, and we're doing it again so we can maintain connectedness. If you wish to participate in that and have your name and information listed, you can sign up on eBlast. It'll take you to a link that will get your information in, and we will put it out in May. That means that the information has to be in by April 30th. So if you are already a member and you have signed that you wish to participate, you will be there. If you are not and you wish to participate, please join us and have your name listed. Go to eBlast and sign up, please. Our meditation for the month of April is a letter from God, and that will be on Wednesday, April 19th at 7 o'clock, a week from Wednesday. And it will be here, so please join us. Our monthly meditations have been very joyful experiences, so we please invite you to join us on those. April 22nd is a two-time event. First of all, we're having our spring market, which will be here. We'll have all kind of vendors noted, and they will be selling and sharing all kinds of things. We'll also have our grounds beautification day. The profits from our flower endeavor will go to purchasing plants to plant around the building. You can join us in planting and get in the dirt and dig deep. So we will have a sign-up sheet for the April 22nd day. I would also remind us all that we have beautiful flowers here thanks to the generosity of all you folk, and we invite you to take them home with you. So after the service, please come up and collect all your beauty, your tulips and your lilies, and take them home with you. So now, please join me in our prayer for protection. Please stand. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
May the love of God uplift us and bring us clarity. May the wisdom of God guide each and every step of our way. And may the power of God surround us and protect us to make smooth, perfect, and beautiful our way. And together we say, and so it is. All right.